user-generated content. Now, this is something that sounds a bit obvious, yet it might surprise you how corporations and companies are using this term and what it actually means. Hey, my name is Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast, and we talk today about the actionable, practical, real things you need to know to be able to grow and scale your business. And more importantly, with today's episode, how you can differentiate yourself and get ahead of the competition. Before we dive into today's episode, we got a word from one of the incredible businesses that sponsors the podcast. Check out this quick ad and we'll be back soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. All right, user-generated content. UGC is what the kids are calling it these days. I'm kidding. If you're a first-time listener, you're like, who's this joker? Who's this guy? What's going on here? This is the term that businesses are using as they talk about this. They're calling it UGC, or user-generated content. Now, call me old-fashioned, but when I think of user-generated content, I think of content that people are creating. And I think of this in one of two ways. If you knew nothing about it, you would probably assume that this is, companies that they are relying on users to generate content for them. This would not be unlike, asking people who follow your page to provide their best submissions for like a new logo or provide their best memes or what have you. And so you would then take the winning meme and put it on your content. It's actually somewhat clever, I guess, in that it creates content for you at really no expense. Unfortunately, this does take a lot of trust with your customers and trust with your fan base. They don't feel like you're just using them for your own advantage. And beyond that, it's fairly cost free in the sense of you're not paying developers or designers or what have you to do this kind of stuff. So you might think that user-generated content, that may be what it is. Or you might think that user-generated content is an actual user, a person working for the company who is creating content. And you might go there because we know that we are in an age where AI has become prolific. It is a key part of our workflow. It is a deeply intentional part of the work we're doing day to day. So when you hear UGC, you might think, oh, it's not AI, it's a user, it's someone creating this stuff. Well, if you don't know the term, let me tell you what it actually is, or rather how companies are using it today. I've talked about this. It's so funny, the themes that come up on the podcast, the things that we tend to talk about again and again. And just if you're a first-time listener, there's so many different things that pop up on this podcast. It's kind of a holistic approach to literally doing business better. I mean, what are some things we need to know and do better? Having said that, I typically, the different eras of the Good Advice podcast are usually things that are like particularly of interest to me and personally of interest to me. So I talk a lot about great hiring. I love leadership. I love thinking about empowering your people. So there's the occasional episode on that. Talk a lot about pay and paying people well. I am deeply troubled by the dystopian nature of certain elements of our world. And people, I saw this quote from Google. I think it was the Google CEO. And I'll correct this after the fact. This isn't accurate in terms of who said it. But this person said that the perfect work week is a 60-hour work week. Now, this is directly in contrast with what some other people have said of, let's try out a a 4-day work week. And then if you are a listener and you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you certainly work more than a 4-day work week and a 40-hour work week. But even on the other side of that, I think of, I've talked about the 4-hour work week from, oh gosh, what's the author's name? The guy who wrote that book. I just talked about it on a recent podcast episode. But yeah, from 4 hours to 60 hours, I'll put and now that I've, put this out there, I'm probably going to do an episode on this, talking about everything wrong with the 60-hour work week and understanding that, what a sad life if your entire existence is around the hours you put into working for someone else. I just don't believe in that. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's a fulfilling life. As a Christian, I don't think it's what God intended for us, whether you believe in God or not. I just don't think I don't think we were designed at our core to work endlessly. I mean, think about this. A 60-hour work week is 12 hours a day. So 12 hours working, 8 hours of sleep. I don't know about you. I don't think I've gotten 8 hours of sleep in probably since I had kids. So 3 or 4 years. But that leaves 4 hours a day for eating and talking and whatever else you would want to do. I think that's a sad existence. I don't think that's what we're designed for. So, I'll occasionally have an episode on pay and work and stuff like that. But then we have, beyond all of this, fam, we have the tried and true, this topic we keep coming back to, AI. Is AI a good thing? Is AI good for the world? Should we be embracing AI, or should we be pumping the brakes and sounding the alarm on, hey, this thing's moving pretty fast? Now, the disclaimer I always give, because I get people who think that I just hate AI because I talk about it often. And we got to appreciate nuance a little bit. We got to appreciate nuance. Just because I'm criticizing something doesn't mean that I am outright against it. I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, but I've been thinking about this quote that was shared with me, which was, if you and I disagree on 1%, then we may as well be on opposite sides of the platform. And this is simply not true. It's not true in life. You could have a neighbor who votes exactly the same as you down the ticket in terms of the kinds of people that you vote for, while having totally different beliefs on a number of things. And if you struggle with that statement alone, you may be falling into the trap of the quote that I just gave. It's difficult today to really have honest conversations with people without them assuming you're the bad guy, or you're against them, or you disagree completely. And that's simply not the case. It is simply not the case. I think growing in being a more mature, empowered citizen means getting comfortable with that 1% difference, and actually more particularly getting comfortable with that 15, 20, 25% differences. At the end of the day, we're not really all that different. We just have, in many cases, different approaches to things. So let's talk AI today. Let's talk AI. And if you think I'm crazy, you can shoot me an email and tell me how nuts I am. But again, disclaimer, I have, and I always say this, I have a paid ChatGPT membership. I like ChatGPT. Someone the other day referred to me, AI as narrow AI. And I think I really like that expression, because what they're implying with that is the narrow use cases of AI. At least I interpret it that way. That could be wrong. The narrow use cases of, like, oh, have AI write your emails, have AI comment on social media, have AI, all this like really silly, stupid stuff that people are just trying to get busy work out of the way. I don't see much of a future for AI there. or I certainly don't like it from that perspective, even though the multitude of social media platforms are pushing it. Just commenting on LinkedIn today, you get a few different bubbles on what you can reply with. You can just autofill. And I just think, what a sad existence that even our basic communications with one another, chat with one another, is just generated content, right? I mean, just kind of a wild, weird concept to me. But regardless of that, let's get back to the topic at hand, UGC. So companies are doing what companies do best, which is finding a way to maximize their profits no matter what. No matter what. The number must go up and to the right no matter what. So here's what UGC content is. These are essentially, just dumbing it down in its base form. These are AI profiles. This is AI content. This would be an AI influencer that we've talked about on the podcast before. I talked about Puma's account I can't think of the person's name. It's not even a person. It's an AI profile, but I can't think of the name of the profile. But we have these companies that are creating these social media profiles and having AI generated content for people to then engage with, to strengthen the brand, and let's just get as dystopian as we can get here. You follow, and I'm just literally making this up off the top of my head. You follow John Fergo, who is a gym rat, fitness guy, loves to run, loves to exercise, and every couple of days he talks about his cheat meal being a McDonald's double cheeseburger. And this is, the pictures look real. You see a young guy in his 20s, maybe early 30s. He's got a beard. I'm like inventing this. I'm living vicariously in this person in my mind. But, there's pictures of him at the gym lifting weights. You're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, nice. The only problem is that this is a McDonald's account. This is a McDonald's UGC. Am I using that right? It's an AI account. This guy, John, doesn't exist. Now, and again, this is a totally made up example. You're not going to find this guy. But just getting in the comments and seeing him replying to comments and, with motivational quote, hey, keep after it. People are commenting, I hope I look like this one day, or I feel so inspired by you. And John's commenting, keep going, you can do it. And I just think about how wild a concept this is. And here's like where it gets really weird to me is people who say, well, if there's value added, what does it matter? If someone feels inspired, and here's the deal, let's be real. These are like the mongoloid marketing people in the company who they know what they're doing is highly controversial. They know what they're doing is shallow engagement baiting, but the way they legitimize it to themselves and make themselves feel better at night is, oh, we're inspiring people. So like, why does it matter? And it's like, let's cut the crap. Nuts and bolts. This is a way to monetize people, people who in some cases are desperate and are looking for inspiration. It's a way to, find ways to maximize. I mean, really, frankly, it's a way to find a way to maximize brand engagement at as cheap a cost as possible. Like, let's understand just the sheer definition of a business. It is, inputs go in, I spend money, and the outputs of that are hopefully higher revenue. Hopefully, what I spend my money on is going to generate me money. And good business, as people tell us sometimes, is that gap should widen over the years. You should be making more and more money, and significantly more than the money you are spending. If you're a successful business owner, you've cracked the code on that. You've figured out how to do it. Unfortunately, What people have done with this is companies that have notoriously underpaid their employees to make as much money as possible, companies like the ones who are participating in UGC in order to avoid paying for influencers, in order to avoid paying for marketing, in order to avoid paying for brand engagement, and not even just the payment of dollars, I think just the investment of time. When I get on LinkedIn and I'm commenting on posts, that's a little bit of time. "Hey, I love this. Hey, keep after it. Hey, great job." And sometimes it's a little bit of a lengthier comment, which, by the way, the old school LinkedIn days, man, I was a keyboard warrior, I'll tell you. Not as it's I shouldn't say that because that implies someone, like, arguing with people. Actually, what it was, like, someone would be like, "Hey, made a sale today," and it's like a screenshot or something, and I'd comment, "Great job. Sales are so difficult, but," and I'd give, like, this open-aired thought of, like, "Okay, man, just great job would have been good enough." So, I've since learned and matured in my social media engagements, but despite all that, there is a level of time that gets spent on commenting and building a brand and engaging and building a tribe. And what these companies are ultimately trying to do is they're trying to do all of that in as cheap a cost as possible. I can't think of a more disgusting and well, that's not true at all. I can think of plenty of things more disgusting, dystopian, and immoral in today's business world. But this certainly is a very annoying element of that I have focused on in recent days. And maybe I'm a little miffed about this because of the rise of AI podcasts, which I talked about maybe a couple months ago, where you'll put a prompt in and then it generates two fake people, fake talking about a topic. And the way it's been presented to me is that there's an audience for this, that people like hearing people hash things out, but it's fake. It's fake, and I think there's such a lack of an implicit understanding of your own value sometimes where people will willingly allow themselves to be monetized and engaged. It's like the person who doom scrolls on a social media platform without realizing that by endlessly scrolling, you are feeding the algorithm. You're feeding your information. You're feeding your the ads that are rolling up. I mean, it's you ever wonder why Mark Zuckerberg is so filthy rich? Hello, ads on Facebook and Instagram. There is so much money being spent on these things. And the old quote for Facebook, whenever there was like some early days conversation around it, was like, it's free. It's a free social media platform. And it was like, no, it's not free. You are the product. You are the one who is being monetized for this. So, all that to say, now that you've heard a dude yelling about AI today, what does it mean for you as a small business owner? First of all, there's nothing you're going to be able to generate at scale in the same way that McDonald's, Puma, whoever, again, I don't know if McDonald's is doing anything like this, so I shouldn't even include them in the example. You're not going to be able to generate anything at the scale that these companies will and to manage these accounts at the level that they will. So if someone's trying to sell you something that's, hey, small business owner, let's do some UGC. Let's build you a profile. It'll post on its own. You can know you are being scammed. This is someone who's going to make lots of promises to you. We talk a lot about this kind of sales tactic. We'll make a lot of promises to you. They will tell you that, it'll create great content. It'll engage. It'll be awesome. This is simply not the truth. There is no replacement for a small business owner, at least not yet, at least not today. Now, AI as a whole is moving very quickly. I could eat my words. In 6 months, there could be a tool that does it perfectly, and the average person would never even know. And I think today's version of AI is for those who are more tech savvy, that it's pretty obvious when AI is involved. You see a picture and you're like, okay, I think that's AI. And even in the comments, people are like, this is definitely AI. This is so, well, actually, you know what though? Even today, when it's somewhat clear, you still have people in the comments who are like, is this real? Is this real? Is this, oh my gosh, wow. And I actually, I had, I was getting my hair cut, and this barber next to me had a photo on his phone that I would call extremely political. And I didn't want to get in this conversation, but I overheard the barber talking to his customer on like, here's the latest thing that happened. Here's who got arrested today, and had a picture on his phone. And the person he was getting his haircut was like, "Is that AI?" And he was like, "No, no, no, it's not AI." Well, shows it over to the guy cutting my hair, and I'm like, this is very clearly AI. It's very obvious. I mean, she's got 6 fingers on one hand. Like, come on. It's like all the telltale signs, right? But it is getting smarter. It is getting better. And I will say, like the Puma one that I talked about a month ago, it wasn't obvious like that. If I had just been scrolling, I would not have known at first glance. So it could be, 6 months from now, that it's different. That it's, so real, you can't even tell. And in this case, this is like not a very business savvy way to approach this. I won't give you a business reason not to engage. I will just give you a human one. Please, oh please, build a business on real connections and real engagements with people. Build a business on genuine, authentic conversations and relationships, and not what an AI tool can do for you. When you think about scaling a brand and making more money and charging what you're worth and charging higher ticket amounts, that comes not only from being better at sales, but it comes from a multitude of relationships that you build over time. An AI tool can't do that. It can't. You've got to be willing to engage. And that is my plea today. And if you're thinking, how do I start engaging? You can just start small. I mean, a lot of business I've done on LinkedIn has just come from getting to know people, meeting people. Geez, I think I know maybe more business people from LinkedIn than I have from anyone locally, just because of the people I've been able to meet and connect with. So it's a good starting point. Think about these things in a very careful way. And remember, as I said in a previous episode, there's no silver bullets to any of this. You got to put in the work. So be especially mindful if someone tries to sell you a solution, because they might also have a bridge to sell you as well. All right, that's today's Good Advice podcast episode. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget you can support the podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you following the show, and I'll see you later. Take care.